Definitely. Well, I think all of this, Elizabeth, begins with awareness. What we're talking about here really is self-development. And the fact is, you cannot have self-development or successful self-development without self-awareness, because you can't change what you're not aware of. That is why the saying that the longest journey we as humans make are the inches from our heads to our hearts is profound and true. So, well, how do we develop that awareness? Well, it's simply to understand ourselves. Many of us want to be wiser. We want to impart wisdom. The beginning of wisdom is knowing yourself. And so when you begin to reflect inwards, well, what are my strengths? What are the words I use to talk to myself? How am I sabotaging myself? How am I expressing my potential? How am I holding myself back? Only when you can be honest with where you are right now and how you are holding yourself back, can you open the path to that next level? And here's the thing about belief. Once we become aware that there is no one reality, a lot of us think we live in the one same reality. The truth is we don't. We live in customized realities. So when an event happens or you go through an experience, the meaning that you derive from that will be very different to the meaning that your partner derives from it, or your colleague, or your friend, or your family member. But this tells us something very powerful, that we are living in the feeling of our thinking moment to moment to moment. And at any given point, you can choose a new thought over another. And by choosing your thoughts, that is the process of shaping and sculpting your reality into something that works for you, not against you.
Welcome to Elimj ChatShow, a platform where we get to empower our community and where we get to inspire various community. In today's episode, we will be talking to Simon Alexander Ong. He is a personal development entrepreneur and a life coach. He is here to come and empower our community. He will be talking about how transforming your energy can lead to positive change in every area of your life. So do stay tuned to keep on watching. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, feel free to do so right away so you do not miss any content that we do release on this very platform. So stay tuned to keep on watching. Hi, Simon.
Hey, Elizabeth, how's it going?
Oh my goodness, it's going really well. Thank you very much for coming to this lovely platform and having to dedicate your time to come and empower our community. It means a lot.
My absolute pleasure, and looking forward to diving into our conversation.
Okay. Well, before we dive into that conversation, would you please tell our audience who you are? Just a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. So everything I do is designed to awaken people's imagination of what is truly possible so they can live a better story. And I accomplish that through my work as a coach, public speaker, and more recently as the author of Energize. And my life wasn't always this way. I started my career in the middle of 2007 in the financial services industry at what was probably the worst possible time, a year before the global financial crisis. However, that experience was the catalyst behind the journey to where I am today, because it got me questioning what success meant to me and what I wanted to do to have an impact on the world. And that led me down the rabbit hole, exploring my curiosities about helping people and inspiring people to activate the potential that resides within us all.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That sounds like really, really packed. Like, honestly, you've done really well.
Thank you.
So in today's episode, we will be talking about how transforming your energy can lead to positive change in everyone's life. And I know you are the author of Energize. So could you please dive into that topic for me? How possible can we make this?
Sure. So energy is something that we all possess. We call it different things. If you are from the Maori culture, you call it mana. If you're from my Chinese culture, you call it chi. And if you are a fan of the Star Wars film franchise, you might call it the Force. Now, whatever we refer to it as, we're all talking about the same thing, which is energy as a life force. And what I discovered, Elizabeth, was the fact that the most successful people in any industry are not necessarily the smartest or the fastest, but they are the best at managing their energy, because they know that if you simply do not have the energy, and now when I talk about energy, it's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. If you don't have the energy, you cannot show up each day as your best. You cannot. It's as simple as that. It is why when you look at society, most of us are exhausted, not because we are doing too much, but because we are firstly doing too little of the things that bring us joy, the things that make us happy, the things that energize us. And second, because we are often running someone else's race. We are measuring our progress and success against definitions determined by other people. And so when we start to address our energy in those areas, so for example, when we elevate our physical energy, when we elevate our mental energy, when we understand the role of our emotional energy, and when we know what our purpose is, tapping into spiritual energy, we begin to awaken the greatest sources of energy within us. Keep this in mind. When you know what your vision is, when you are clear as to what you are put on this earth to do, nothing can stop you activating that potential and sharing your story with the world.
Oh my goodness. This is really, really impactful in me and on me as well. The reason is I love when people talk about the spiritualism of we human being, because sometimes we do you did mention about we're running other people's race. So when we are running that race, we tend to forget to look after ourselves, and even in terms of our spiritual aspect. Thank you very
Definitely.
much. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you this question here. What has inspired you to really go into this direction? Why did you choose this journey?
Sure. I think there was partly a yearning to do more with my life, and also because I was not happy with the choices I was making. You see, when I grew up, Elizabeth, I had this mistaken belief that success was determined by my job title and what I had on my CV. So, for example, I would only be considered a success by my family and society if I was in a well-paying job with a prestigious title and status, and I had achieved high academic qualifications. Now, of course, as I've grown older and wiser, I've come to understand that happiness and achievement are not the same thing, and that tying your emotional well-being to outcomes is not a great way to live. Because if you are living life saying, I will be happy when, well, what does that mean you are in the meantime? Sad, depressed, anxious? You're not living. You're living in this tragic scenario of living as if you are never going to die, and then dying having never really lived. And so I wasn't happy with the choices I was making. And the global financial crisis acted as that fire, if you will, to get me moving into a different direction. And that's where the first part came in. I really wanted to understand, what was it that I wanted my legacy to stand for? What did I want to contribute to the world? And it's a very powerful question to reflect on. I began to ask myself, when I get to the end of my life, what will be my legacy? What will Simon be known for? And at that moment, I realized, Elizabeth, that people would not care about my career achievements, whether that is Simon got promoted the fastest in this company, Simon earned the most money within his circle of friends. People would not care about that. People would care about my life values and my legacy virtues, things such as the people that Simon inspired, the stories that Simon activated, how he gave to this world values that could transform people's lives. So those things acted as the inspiration for this journey to begin. And also going to webinars and seminars and seeing people on stage, and this small voice in my head telling me, Simon, you could be just as good or even better than those people on stage. I often say, Elizabeth, to people that there are always two sales that happen. The second is selling you to others, and the first is selling you to you.
Mm.
And I began working on selling me to me, because when that happens, when you trust and believe that you have power, value, and something to share with this world, guess what? You begin to take steps towards unleashing that energetic self.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. So I'm someone who I kind of like hold my emotion a little bit because I'm quite animated and I can go zzz, so sometimes I kind of like hold it together. My goodness. I love what you've just said. And you made mention of 2 points over there, saying there are two types of sales here. One is either to sell yourself to people or to sell yourself to yourself. Do you know I've never heard of that before, despite reading tons of books?
It's powerful because it's very true, is that many of us are put in this position. So it's this very powerful analogy, because many of us are put in this position where we are selling ourselves to others. So whether that is for investment, whether that is to make a sale, whether that is to scale and grow our business. But the reason most fail is because either they don't believe in a product or they don't believe in the service, but more importantly, they don't believe in themselves. And that part is selling you to you. If you cannot sell you to you, you're making it very challenging to sell you to others.
Oh my goodness. I love that part. You know, you've just touched upon something. Um, you know, I am on a platform called Clubhouse. So I have a very small place whereby sometimes I just talk about ways to empower people. And there was a day a guy came to the platform, and he's a matured person and he's from a different background. He doesn't live, in this environment. And he did say something. He said, "Look, I want to talk to you about something." I said, "Go for it." He said he's got good job, good business, everything is fine. However, deep down inside him, he suffers with self-belief. And you have just dived into that part, which I would love you to quickly touch about. How can we untangle that lack of self-belief? How can we make it, that we can embrace it?
Definitely. Well, I think all of this, Elizabeth, begins with awareness. We are, what we're talking about here really is self-development. And the fact is, you cannot have self-development or successful self-development without self-awareness, because you can't change what you're not aware of. That is why the saying that the longest journey we as humans make are the inches from our heads to our hearts is profound and true. So, well, how do we develop that awareness? Well, it's simply to understand ourselves. Many of us want to be wiser. We want to impart wisdom. The beginning of wisdom is knowing yourself. And so when you begin to reflect inwards, well, what are my strengths? What are the words I use to talk to myself? How am I sabotaging myself? How am I expressing my potential? How am I holding myself back? Only when you can be honest with where you are right now and how you are holding yourself back, can you open the path to that next level. And here's the thing about belief. Once we become aware that there is no one reality, a lot of us think we live in the one same reality. The truth is we don't. We live in customized realities. So when an event happens or you go through an experience, the meaning that you derive from that will be very different to the meaning that your partner derives from it, or your colleague, or your friend, or your family member. But this tells us something very powerful, that we are living in the feeling of our thinking moment to moment to moment. And at any given point, you can choose a new thought over another. And by choosing your thoughts, that is the process of shaping and sculpting your reality into something that works for you, not against you. And so one of the best places to start is to be aware of the words that you are using when speaking to yourself. There's no point telling your friends and your family, "I am going to do this. This is what I'm going to do this year." If when you walk into the corner and you speak to yourself, you say, "Can I really?" is that something that I can actually do? Because if those are the words you are saying to yourself, how are you ever going to achieve and access your full potential? So start speaking to yourself as your best friend, as the cheerleader that we all need in our life. Because when you start speaking to yourself in that way, guess what? You show up differently. You become aware of the thoughts that you have and how that shapes your reality. And what happens is that you begin to live life through the lens of pronoia. You may have heard of the word paranoia, which is the belief that people are trying to sabotage me. I'm a victim of the world. I can't get that promotion because my colleague is trying to backstab me. This is what we call paranoia. Pronoia is the belief that the world is working in your favor, that the universe wants to help you. Now, I'm not saying this is true or not. What I'm saying is to imagine what would be possible if you were to live life through that lens, so that every setback, challenge, and failure that you go through, you look for the lesson, not to be defined by it, but to turn those events into fuel for your growth, to fuel to help you come back stronger.
I wish you could see how my body was just like, my energy was just like popping. Thank you very much for this. It means a lot. And I'm 100% certain that somebody will listen to this and is going to speak directly to them. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So one other quick question here is, what are the benefits of transforming your energy? I know you've already given some out here. Oh, probably two. What are the 2 or 3 benefits of transforming your energy?
So the first is obvious, and we've touched on it a little bit here. So the first benefit of transforming your energy is you will live longer. We've touched on it in different ways throughout this conversation, but you will live longer. Think about it for a moment. When you access greater levels of physical energy, you are exercising, you are getting sufficient rest, and you are eating well, naturally, you will live longer. When you live with purpose, when you tap into that spiritual energy, when you wake up each day excited by possibilities, not limitations, focused on what can be rather than what can't, guess what? You live longer because you move forward with hope, with positivity, and not toxicity and negativity. With emotional energy, guess what? You're using your mind as a healing engine. Stress creates illness. Well, what you are doing is you're creating well-being through the fact that you are emotionally regulating your response to events outside of your control, and you are living in the present moment. Mental energy, your ability to focus. When you elevate your ability to focus, when you eliminate the distractions and create boundaries around your energy, guess what? You live longer because you're building momentum towards something that means a lot to you. Second benefit is you begin to energize other people. When you show up differently with more energy, guess what? People notice. Your colleagues will notice, your partner will notice, your family will notice, and that will have a dramatic impact on the relationships that you have with them. A great example of this is a talk done by Brian Stevenson in 2012 when he stepped onto the TED stage. A civil rights attorney shared 3 stories with the audience. One about Rosa Parks, one about his grandmother, and one about a janitor he met in the courtroom. Now, his ability to energize the audience, to share his passion with the audience, resulted in not only the longest standing ovation in TED history, but coming together within a space of 24 hours to contribute towards his nonprofit $1 million. That is the power of our ability to energize other people. What happens is that we begin to invite others into our story. Not only do we invite them into our story, but we also inspire them to step into their own story. The third benefit about transforming your energy is simple. You begin to transform the way you live and work. And when you begin to transform the way you live and work, no limit becomes your limit.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to give you a big clap. Thank you so much for sharing this. Oh my goodness. I quickly dab into this. Remember the place we met? We met at a different event. There was a Chinese and Malaysian event. That was where we connected. And the moment I walked into the place, obviously I knew the person who was coming to speak, because I have seen it in the leaflet and stuff like that. But having to see you and having to hear you speak. If you can remember, I recorded loads of series of content that day, and I'm going to release them soon. You are magical, honestly. Thank you very much for coming up with lots of nuggets to support your community. Thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for the kind words, Elizabeth.
You're welcome, Simon. I love you. You're such an humble person. And honestly, I get connected when I meet humble people. I love that. Thank you.
I think the world needs more of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right. So we're going to move on to our third question here. Could you please share with me an energy technique which we can use to transform our energy?
Sure. So the first one that I'm going to share is an activity that will uplift your mood and your energy instantly, no matter what you might be feeling right now. And it's 3 steps. The first is to write down on a piece of paper the name of somebody that you can be grateful for right now. And this person could be a partner, a colleague, a friend, or even a random stranger who has helped you in some way that has shaped you today. Once you've done that first step, the second is to write down in a few sentences, why did you choose that person? And the key here is to be as specific as you can. What did they do? How did they help you? What would life be if they simply were not there and you did not meet them? How have they shaped your thinking? How have they shaped you as a person? Write this down and be as clear as you can, because it is going to help you in the final step. The third and final step of this activity is to pick up the phone and to call that person and read out what you wrote down in step 2. Now, if you are not comfortable picking up the phone and calling this person, at the minimum, you want to send a voice note. And here's why. If you simply send a text, it can lack emotion and energy because they don't know the place that you wrote that from. But if you send something with voice, for example, a voice note or a phone call, they can feel the energy. You can feel the energy of where someone is coming from through their voice. Emotion is nothing more than energy in motion, and emotion can be felt through speaking and expressing ourselves through the medium of voice. So that is the first activity. Express gratitude with intention, tell someone, share it with someone. And it not only benefits you, but it also benefits the recipient. The second activity is related to the fact that the fastest way to make progress in any area of your life, your career, or your business is to design an environment that makes it impossible not to succeed. So here are some ideas that you can apply immediately. One is create an MBA. Now, I don't mean MBA as a business qualification. MBA for me means Mental Board of Advisors. Choose 4 to 6 people, dead or alive, that inspire you in some way, so that when you go through a dilemma, a challenge, or you have a question you want answered, you close your eyes, you go into this imaginary boardroom, and you ask each of these members of your advisory team what they would do if they were you. That is the first thing you can do to upgrade and optimize your environment. The second thing is choose carefully who you follow on social media. We all use social media every day. One of the first things we do when we wake up each morning is pick up our phones. And so we have to be mindful as to who we follow, because the people that we follow can either be negative for our mental health and our well-being, or they can be positive and energizing. And the people you follow will influence how you see yourself and what you see as possible. And the third way to up-level your environment is to think about the physical spaces that you spend time in. Start spending some of your time in spaces that inspire you. Imagine planning your new year in a beautiful 5-star hotel, sitting in the lobby, ordering a cup of tea or a cup of coffee with your notepad on table, planning your year ahead. Just imagine how excited and inspired you will be in a beautiful setting such as that.
Wow. Oh my goodness. You need to write more books. And guess what? The other one which you've written, which is the Energize, what I usually do, I buy the book, the physical one, and I'll buy the audio one. So I've been going through the book and I really, really love it. But in your book, it talked about the importance of, you've talked about one, which is the social media path and the people who you choose to follow. So there is one which you talked about stress, sleep, the importance of sleep. Can I quickly ask you, why is sleep really important in the life of entrepreneur?
Sure. Well, first of all, if you want to be more productive, if you want to get more done, simply put, that begins with sufficient sleep. Because no matter what tip, strategy, or hack that you listen to and want to apply, you will not follow through with it if you are starting your day with a sleep deficit. I mean, it is like running a 100-meter sprint, starting 50 meters behind the starting line. Now, once the day begins, you're always playing catch up throughout the day. And you cannot survive in the long term on just a couple of hours of sleep, because what happens is your focus begins to decline. Your ability to manage your attention falls, and you simply cannot do the things that you want to do. And so your most productive day always begins with sufficient sleep. If you are a parent, you will probably be able to resonate. When your child does not have sufficient sleep, there is chaos, and you're not sure you can get through the day. The same thing is true for us as adults. If you are only surviving on a couple of hours sleep, then guess what? Accidents are bound to happen. Imagine going into a taxi. Would you be confident and comfortable if you knew that the person driving you had only survived on 2 hours of sleep that night? I wouldn't be. I would be concerned. And so we have to be concerned about ourselves, because sleep is often the first thing that we sacrifice in trying to do more. Yet it is the very thing that gives us the energy in the morning. Know that when you wake up with a lack of sleep, you have little energy. But when you wake up having good rest, you're ready to take on whatever the day throws your way.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you very much for sharing this. This is really, really important. And I want people to really listen to that path. And I want to say thank you for that. Can you quickly tell me, because you mentioned something here, which is about being patient. Actually, it's two things. There was one which you quoted, death isn't the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is when when one dies and you did not kind of like fulfill your desire.
Just a reference. So yeah, death is not the greatest loss in life. What is what dies inside of us while we are still alive. That is the greatest loss in life. Because would you want to be someone that gets to the end of their life and, reflecting back, did not share your gifts with the world, did not access your potential? Or would you rather get to the end of your life knowing that you did the best you could to explore the things that made you feel alive, to explore the things that you wanted to explore? I mean, there is a great quote, and I don't know off the top of my head who said it originally, but the quote goes something like this: at the end of your life, the person that you became meets the person that you could have become. That is what hell is about. The person that you became meets the person that you could have become. Just imagine. Let's not get to that point. Let's enjoy life now. Let's realize that we have already won the greatest lottery ticket there is going, the lottery of life. We are a miracle. You matter. There has never been anyone like you, nor will there ever will be. You are completely unique in your genetic makeup and what makes you you. The question is, what are you going to do with that winning ticket of life that you have holding in your hands?
Oh my goodness, I nearly cried just now. I nearly cried. I just held it back. Woo. Thank you very much. That is amazing. So my quick question is, before I let you go, is if people really want to connect with you, how can they connect with you and what platform do you use? And if they want to get your book as well, which is Energize, where can they get that from?
Sure. So I'm on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. But the two that I use most often are LinkedIn. So you can search Simon Alexander Ong and make sure to click on the person, not the company. Or Instagram, my handle is at Simon Alexander O. And if you would like to purchase a copy of my book, then you can go to the website getenergizedbook.com. That is energized with a Z. And I hope you enjoy reading it.
Well, thank you very much.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for having me here today again. And yes, I look forward to staying in touch and who knows, doing an event together in the near future.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed today's content. If you've got any question for me, feel free to leave your comments below, or you can send me a DM. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, feel free to do so right away so you do not miss any content that we will be releasing on this very platform. So thank you very much for watching and hope to see you next time. Cheers.